Hey everyone, today we have a great episode lined up. Back and around the coin, we have the three of us, Brian, Faisal, and myself. This is Mike here. And we have on our show today a guest, Grace Gong, a good friend of mine, who is joining us today to tell us about her journey, beginning in China, moving to the US, and writing her new book, which has just come out, called The Last Key to Success. In which she gathered 21 contributing writers from the Forbes 30/30 list and grouped them all together and wrote this great book. So Grace, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this show.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited to have you. Before we jump into that, I want to give a quick welcome to Brian and Faisal. Faisal, pre-show we talked about a couple of the contributing writers.
Good morning. So yes, two articles we talked about that are worth mentioning. We'll put the links in the show notes. One is by Winnie Lingham. His article is Bitcoin 2017, a currency devaluation hedge for emerging markets. It's a great read. It's on Medium. You can read it there. And the other one is by Arjun Venkatachalam. He's written an article called Currency Demonetization, why it didn't really work and why it was a missed opportunity. And this is specifically refers to the demonetization that's happening in India. So shout out to those two guys.
Yeah, we're going to keep adding contributing writers. And as a focus for 2017, we talked about pre-show, is just to do a better job of integrating our listeners and contributing writers into the show. So we'll include links there and then look for further guests in other episodes. Grace, we're really excited to have you on. How are you doing this morning?
It's been good. I'm sorry my voice is a little bit sick because of the weather, but yeah, it's been very exciting. I've been looking forward to do the show, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah,
How are you guys?
we're really excited.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're great. So
I
Grace,
gotta ask Grace. Yeah, I'm gonna jump in because I'm just blown away with this idea of the book, and I gotta let everybody know Mike contributed to this book. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, I did.
Absolutely. Grace, what started you on this journey to write this book? And then let's start there and maybe work backwards on how you got to it.
Yeah, of course. So I started the book because I was very inspired by my favorite comedian. His name is Jude Apatow. He wrote a book called Sick in the Head, and he interviewed all the famous comedians when he just started out his career in comedy. So he interviewed like Jerry Seinfeld, Adam Sandler. Back in time, they're like the top comedian. Right now, there's Amy Schumer and everybody else. So what he did was he just use a gigantic recorder, and then he go to their house, ask a bunch of questions about how they started comedy and what challenge they face and everything else, and all the secret to success. And he compiled it into a book called Sick in the Head. And nowadays he is one of the top comedy director, writer, and everything else. He directed all my favorite movie, like Knocked Up or all that stuff. So I feel like I want to do that, but in business or entrepreneurship. So that's what inspired me to create this.
Wonderful, wonderful. And did you think about the idea of having individual authors from the very first moment, or what kind of coalesced that got you to this point?
I think so there were two choices. One is you can interview them. The second is they can write it themselves. I personally like to read stuff that people wrote about themselves instead of just read about someone else interview, because I feel like I want to actually hear their voice from their personal perspective and what challenges they're facing, instead of just asking questions about what they did, because I want to hear about what's their struggle. A lot of the feelings are behind the scene. Normally you can't technically describe into action, but I want to hear how they felt at the moment, and then what made them to make a certain decision. So I want to learn about like the decision concept throughout their throughout like their journey.
I love it. What made you pick Mike? Because Mike is a genius. We think of him as just being brilliant. How did you find him?
Or
I
how did
found
Mike
him
find
on
you?
Man, Mike is so friendly. Like when I was like looking at the list, and I originally I emailed maybe around like 200 people, and then 146 people said like yes, we're interested. And then
Wow.
Mike
Wow, you
was
got 146 yeses? That's
they're
amazing.
like I'm interested. Yes, I'm interested, and then email me more details, and then give me a call or something like that. I was very surprised. I think most people are very supportive. I picked Mike is because early on we scheduled a call and Mike was just very friendly and yeah, and then he has a great picture, so that helps.
Yeah.
Um,
Funny. Wow.
and yeah, and also Mike, it's like very when I read about his draft, like a lot of people's drafts are like very dry, but Mike is like very emphasizing on how he made his decision, and then like his story are very very relatable. His product is so like he talked about his journey about like for example, like at the beginning they started like a very different app than now, and how he made it from like how he made the switch. So I find it very interesting and engaging. Also, I find a lot of my friend all share like similar paths in San Francisco. They're living in like a gigantic house with a bunch of people, and like eventually find like co-founder, and then working like day to night to like make it work. And right now Mike is in OA, so like I feel like those stories are very interesting and also like very relatable. So I think like he's a really great person to work with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So let me ask you, Grace. Did you take? How did you get inspired by the idea? I mean, I understand that the comedian thing was there. Was this something that you always wanted to do? You know, write a book or publish something, or was it just something that you had a moment and you said, you know what, I'm going to do this?
The major purpose that drives me to do it is I really want to create something that will connect entrepreneurs all around the world to share their experiences and getting help from other entrepreneurs. Currently, because I think I'm very fortunate to be in San Francisco. This book is just like a starting point of that journey. So I'm very fortunate to living in San Francisco that like everyone around me is an entrepreneur. But I remember that like I used to live in the suburb of Illinois or like in Beijing, like when I was in high school. I wish I could have the opportunity to actually pursuing entrepreneurship. I yeah, like I felt like I was very lack of resources and the supporting system from peers. If I know that other peer in all around the world are actually creating something just like me, I would probably more likely to keep pursuing it. Because when I feel like currently, I think from a personal perspective, this journey of like asking people how they created their company are giving me a lot of not just information, but a lot of like it's a really great network to leverage on even now or in the future. So I really hope to like keep our network going, and I'm pretty sure I will keep expanding it. Another thing, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah, another thing.
Go ahead.
Another thing is I I really hope to like share this network with entrepreneur around the world, because there are so many people are creating companies in a position that like nobody else are doing it. So they probably feel very like they probably feel like they are very alone. So I just really hope to like give them the support and peer system to like help them to be successful. And that's my general goal about it.
So
I think a
Grace,
book would be, yeah.
I was just going to say your journey starts in China. You were born in China, correct?
Yes.
So tell us about your early days and contrast what, because you sort of talked about the entrepreneur spirit and how it is surrounding you and motivates you. Contrast that to your early days and your journey getting to, I guess you said Chicago and the Silicon Valley. Go into that a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I started in when I was 14 in high school. Like I went to an international private high school in China, and I started English newspaper in China because back in time, when I was in high school, because our school is an international high school, we're very small and like very unique. Everybody is trying to study abroad. So 95% of the student goes to America, and 5% of people go to like Canada or something, or England. And because of everyone is trying to study abroad, and I was reading about like college application to a school outside of my country, and they said that beside like a good score, you need extracurricular activity. And because of most Chinese high school doesn't really have much extracurricular, because everyone is just like studying all the time, and I thought it would be cool to like, because our school have a lot of activities and we have a lot of like student organizations. I remember when I started, it was like 12 student organizations or 13. And I was like, since we're applying for school, we probably should have someone to record what we did for these activities, so we can have something to put it on our college applications. And I talked to my roommate about it. They think it's great. So and like I just started like an English newspaper because to record like all these activity that we have in our school campus. And basically I just like reached out to my roommate. She designed the poster for us, and I talked to one of my really good friend. Then she was like helping me to like, like asking around if people would do it. We hung posters in like every classroom. We do like bake sales, or we would like I just like keep recruiting all my friends to join this. And I remember there was like 140 people in our class, and I have 72 people to like join on board. I technically hired like one of this like super popular guy in like in our school. I hired him to like be joining our board of directors. So like there were a lot of girls joining because of him. And like eventually we just like produced this newspaper. It's an English newspaper called 回家 Voice. And and then like people just like people's parents and people just started buying our newspaper. So that was like my first growing up entrepreneur experience, that what changed me and like encouraged me to do whatever I'm doing today.
Wow, what a what a great start. So how did you wind up in Chicago?
I was applying for college and I did not take the SAT. So there were only couple limited options to pick. Like the school have like a very limited options to like pick like if you don't have the SAT score as an international student. And my school has an agency. I said that I want to study media or communication and stuff like that. And my high school agency picked University of Illinois and Urbana-Champaign for me. And I just came to study abroad.
Wonderful.
After.
How did you get to the Silicon Valley? That's a bit of a trek.
After like I graduate and I moved to New York for a little bit, and Silicon Valley offered me a job with visa. So like a support sponsored my visa. So I moved to the Silicon Valley.
Wow. What did you wind up doing at Visa?
So there's this Chinese real estate company, and I actually started their first American office for them. Their clients in China, including Microsoft and Tencent, and right now they like bought. At time it was the most expensive building in San Francisco, and so I just like helped them to starting their American office from the scratch, like renting the room and like actually hiring staff, like including like a content lawyer, everybody else. So I just help them to do a lot of like transitioning work and going to meetings, getting loans, and everything else. So I did that, and right now I think there are clients including like Twitch, which is Amazon now, and like Foursquare, General Assembly, and everything else. So it's like a real estate experience, but also just like starting company from between like starting starting a office for a Chinese company.
Wonderful. So the book, tell us more about some of the authors that you picked. Certainly we know Mike's in there. That's going to be interesting, and maybe a highlight of
When
some
does
of the
it come
subject
out
matter.
also?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so some of the author are, I pick the authors based on like the how like the definitely based on people's quality, and also based on like I want people with diverse experience. There are people that are doing a PhD at Stanford, or there are people that are in Florida starting a startup that is like they are from Turkey, and so it just all based on diverse experience. I shape the book around the question that I think like most entrepreneur ask the most, like from how you starting a team to how do you like turn an idea into like a reality, including like how do you fundraise your like startup, how do you not fundraise but like how do you get funding for your startup, how do you maintain like a good team, how do you do hiring, how do you do marketing, how do you eventually like like sell this company or everything else, and like also including personal issues. For example, how do you get money when you're working for your startup? How do you what's your living condition? How do you pick where to live, where to sell your stuff, and what are some like what are some struggles that you are facing? And I think like people I picked not only share diverse experience, but also they're very good at the subject they're talking about. And after their story, like I would chat with them on their story about like how they started a company, and then pick what's their strong suit. um so there are some people in our book there are some very interesting people, from like a guy who started a fashion company to there are two Harvard girls selling bug chips, and there are PhD at like Yale or Stanford doing some very exciting technology changing like very life changing systems for like like there's electronic hands, or there are like changing the like agriculture system and like everything else. People are extremely interesting. I would love to just like share everyone's story as soon as possible to the world.
Grace, congrats again on all this. It's really inspiring. I think for a lot of people, especially, trying to get into startups or, whatever industry they are, to sort of look at this as a template or an idea that they could then take to whatever realm they're in. I can't tell you how many people, fresh out of college just want to quickly build a network or quickly do something that puts them on the map. And I think you just force this into existence in a really positive way, and it's really encouraging for a lot of people. I used it as an example to a ton of younger folks. I want to learn exactly and share with listeners the approach you took. Specifically, you sent an email out. The email, I'm trying to find it. I'm sure it was it a general introduction? Do you remember how we first came in contact? Did you send emails out? Was that your first outreach?
Yeah. Yeah, here's how I did it. I would send out an email and test the water, and then if people don't respond, I would change the email a little bit. And I think like my second email just worked. I basically just claim, hey, here's who I am, and second, it just like this is a project I'm doing. Would you be interested in joining this? And that's like I think that's basically it. And I probably mentioned about like like I know some of my friends are already interested, and then they started something already, and would you be want to join this? I think it's just basically something like that. I just took like just cold email. I feel like people normally are very interested in helping.
So the initial outreach, and then you get a collection of people. You go from 146 positive responses down to what sort of ways did you use to filter through those to get to the 21 end contributors?
Originally there were like 146 people and said, well, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And originally I sent out a contract and I picked people who signed the fastest. And because I feel like there are people who are, so like originally there were like around 40 people who signed the contract, and I was like, I'm gonna separate them into different books, but that's my original thought. And based on what people wrote, I probably filter out a little bit of people because of like some people are unwilling to share the true story, or some people deliver too slow. And I pick it based on timing a lot, just because I feel like I feel like timing is basically everything. That's my personal philosophy. And and then I read about people's material. I want to make sure there are equally amount of men and women in this book, and I don't want to keep the same people in the same category or like sharing the same experience a lot. For example, if there are two people who created the similar company, I'm probably going to filter out one. Or if there are people who share the same experience. For example, there are two groups of people went to Harvard is creating the same thing, and then like I would probably do one group. And I normally pick the founders that are most like nice and interesting, and I'm not saying the other person are not nice, but it's more about like who gave it more attention, because I feel like that's I don't know, like I feel like that may contribute more. That person may contribute more and more willing to share about like how they created their company. So yeah, that's how I did it.
What do you think? Curious on that. What do you think is the reason so many people responded yes? How many people, I guess, received that first email? And then what do you think it was? Because, you get a lot of emails asking for people to, sell you something or contribute to something or promote their product. But I'm just really impressed with the number of people interested in this. Do you think it was, what was people's motivating factor, do you think? And I can share with you mine after. I'm curious your answer on that.
Thank you. I think generally most people. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, what were you saying? Okay.
Oh, I guess it was just looking at people's motivating factor.
I think most people are just really interested in helping. I think like my email just sounds like I'm seriously actually doing this. And I also have a Word document about like what exactly I want to put in this book. So people think, oh, this person is not like gonna not do it. So I think most people's major concern is like, is this person actually gonna do it? And I just show them that I'm actually doing it. So I think I think most people, A, they're trying to help. B, they think you're also trying to help and then also actually gonna take action on this. And I think that's what drives them to do it. That's what I assume. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who also decide to not do it, and like there must be a reason. For example, they're too busy or something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big motivating factor. But you also entice people with the concept of being in a book. I mean, I think number one, everyone in the world thinks first about themselves. Whether we like to admit it, that's sort of the structure of the world that makes it work successfully. And I think when you offer people the ability to sort of promote their own brand or their company through an actual published book, that's a really appealing and unique proposition for most people. And then you also pitched and implemented a really interesting, I thought quite innovative business model to the book. Can you talk about the finances and how you sort of structured all of that?
Oh yeah, totally. I will give certain amount of share to each individual authors of like the book revenue. However, this book is currently costing a lot, including like the lawyer fee and like bookkeeping or publishing, editing. The editing fee is very, very high at this moment. And But yeah, I would give some share to the contributors in my book.
So let's
And
walk through that. So
personally,
did you?
yeah.
I'm curious. So you set up lawyers. Who else did you need, sort of on the back end? A lawyer, an editor, publishing on Amazon. It sounds. I've never done it. I'm curious to hear your process there. And then, did you create the book as an LLC, or how did you sort of set up the technical details?
I created an LLC for this book, and what else do I need? I'm trying to find my expense section. So there was like editing, consulting. There were website money. There are lawyer fee, insurance, book cover, and everything else. So there are like here and there are a lot of fees, but those field categories are what I have right now. That's like a big cost. Yeah. So there's insurance, lawyer, editing, consulting, cover, website. And there's definitely like promotional stuff like videos or whatever that takes money too.
Yeah.
Okay, let me chime in with a question. So, Grace, you've done this book. What are your plans? Do you plan to do this book internationally, the same concept with people outside the U.S., or do you have something else in mind? Tell us about your future plans.
I'm planning on, this is just my first step, and I'm planning on publishing it in China as well, like publish the same book in China as well. And the cover will be like the forward is going to be by one of the very successful Chinese founder and CEO. And beside that, I'm gonna keep, I think like I want to see like the result from this book and then people's feedback from this book. I definitely want to see people's reaction if people want to read it more, and I'm probably going to create the next book. And I personally want to do either platform or anything else that would help me to connect entrepreneurs around the world. My mission and my personal goal, what drives me, is just to create something that will connect entrepreneurs around the world. That's my major goal, and future plans will be like coming up soon. It really, like I really hope to see like how people like and think about this book, and then I want to help them the best way that I could.
Grace, I got a quick question. Grace, do you think the entrepreneur impact and spirit in China is somewhat different and would impact differently when this book is read in China?
I think like Chinese entrepreneurs are actually very exciting. They've been moving at a way faster pace than what I've seen in Silicon Valley in like a lot of like different small companies. I think since I haven't really go home for a long time, so like I wouldn't tell personally how different they are, but from people I know, I think they would be very likely to read something like this. And it's just very interesting to see like, you know, like entrepreneurs around the world to share their experiences. I think I may do something similar in China and then translate it into English, and then like American people can see like how Chinese people are doing this. And I think it's just very interesting to see like how people would react. I think entrepreneurs around the world are all hoping to like learn from each other and see what's working. And yeah,
I think that's brilliant. I'd love to see that equivalent book made in China published in the U.S. I think there's this sort of black box, and I think it's applied throughout Silicon Valley, that there's just not a great understanding of how entrepreneurship is being run, or even the companies and funding scenarios and iterative strategy. I mean, a lot of those things are just not available to people, I think. And I'm curious, Brian, Faisal, if you have any thoughts on that. But it feels like Silicon Valley is very independent, large, fast-growing, but also quite siloed into the knowledge base.
I think it's fair to say that's one of the reasons why I am one of your co-hosts, so that you get an international perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's something to be said about this idea of the cultural center of entrepreneurism and opportunity as the United States, or even the Silicon Valley. I mean, it's been my estimate that unfortunately, once an area reaches a level of success and wealth, the protectionism to continue to go in the same directional is really prevalent. And I think one of the biggest issues with Silicon Valley right now is the reason why they're not seeing what's coming up ahead and they're grabbing onto VR goggles and saying this is the future is because it's actually being sort of nebulized around the world, and there's pockets of incredible opportunity and entrepreneurism all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think Grace is going to tap in on that in China. I think China needs to get some more insight about what's going on in the U.S. from a ground level, and I think there's also this. The U.S. doesn't see the desire and drive for economic prosperity and innovation in places like China, India, et cetera.
Yeah. I think, Grace, you just have, whether you realize it or not, you have such an amazing bridge between understanding the U.S. market and the Chinese market. And they're just so hugely influential markets in the world. I mean, as Brian would say, you have the quintessential empirical praxis.
There you go.
Available to you. And I really do hope you're able to publish the book in China and maybe even publish a book on how you publish these books. Write the template. You know, I think Faisal, I keep nudging him, but I think he should do this for the banking world and the payments world, is just get 20 people together that are influential in payments, and then, you know, put them all together and help other people learn from their experience. But Grace, we really enjoyed having you on today. I just commend you on all your success and look forward to more of it in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I've learned so much. I've definitely hoped to see like what I could do in the future to help you guys. And please let me know. Like I definitely hope to like pick up your brand on like, you know, like how I could help in like, you know, like the podcast and the entrepreneur world. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.